Hi, I'm PC Peri. Welcome to part 2 of the 22nd Busiversary, the annual Flying Focus video collective retrospective of our weekly series here on Portland Community Media.
Hi, I'm Barb Greene. The group started putting peace and social justice issues on TV back in 1991, using video as a tool for social change, voicing the voiceless. The video bus features speakers, protests, and other information you can't see on mainstream TV.
Grab something to take note of our contact information, which you can see now on your screen, and which will come up a few more times during the show.
Our phone numbers are 503-321-5051 and 503-239-7456.
And our email is ffbc@flyingfocus.org. Get in touch with us if you want to be part of what we're doing or become a supporter.
Also here in the studio tonight are Tom. Hi, Tom. Alan. Hey, Alan. Frank. Hey, Frank. Okay. Margarita. Hi, Margarita. Moss. Hey, Moss. And Ellery. Hey, Ellery.
Now join us again as producers introduce clips from their shows they produced in between November 2012 and October 2013.
So the next clip is another modern day issue that of racial issues.
By Kylar Broadus, who's bringing it to our attention from Missouri, where he's a professor and attorney.
Right.
And an accidental activist?
That's how he refers to his activism, yes. And in this clip, he's talking about what happened when he came out as a trans person of color.
Even in the legal system?
Mm-hmm, even in the legal system.
I got terminated from my job, just like every other trans person. I'd been there for almost 8 years. In less than 6 months, my life turned to hell. Actually, I was gone in 6 months after I announced. My life turned to hell immediately. And daily harassment, took a stress leave for 6 weeks, immediately returned, and then knew that this was not going to work out because I was being pushed out because I was different. I was a freak. In their words, I think freak is a good thing, by the way. But according to mainstream society of who I was. And it was devastating to me because I hid behind my job. You see, that's how I learned how to cope, and I think a lot of people of my generation learned how to cope in that scenario about hiding behind your job, valuing yourself by the work you do only at work. So when that was pulled from my feet, I had a lot of time to look at who I was and myself. But the biggest and most devastating part of all that, besides the emotional and spiritual turmoil, was that I lost my economic base. And we live in a capitalistic society, right? Takes money to live. And I made pretty good money, and I calculated that I'm just starting to make what I made about 20 years ago, just so you know, for the record. And that hit me as I was doing an actually interview about 3 weeks ago. And it's like, wow, what does that say? It says this journey is tough. It says it's hard, but it's not impossible, and we have to keep our optimism as we go through this journey. So yesterday, as I was heading here, one of the things I saw on a billboard was the way I approached this, and it just said it all as I was driving to the St. Louis airport. Live life like your life depends on it. Live life like your life depends on it. And that was how I approached this at the beginning. It's like nobody was going to keep me down. So I began to do advocacy to change the laws and make laws to protect people like us, because when I left that employment and filed a lawsuit and found out there was no law to protect me, I got mad as hell. And then I got busy. And I've been busy ever since. And I can be busy probably till the day I die. This is a labor of love for me. This is a labor of passion.
So this next clip is about a totally different subject now. This is Rosalie Rigel, a woman who has done a lot of interviews of
activists who are speaking out against war and they are giving her the inside view of why they want to be activists. Am I correct?
Right, and the inside view about why they felt so strongly about it, they felt they had to go to prison to get their point across.
And it was not an easy thing for them to do, and they all thought it might be one way, but it was not necessarily that way.
Right. She does say, however, that it is very doable. And this particular clip is a young man talking about, or she's talking about her interview with him, and he provided support for a demonstration against a nuclear facility.
Excellent.
So let's take a look.
And he decided that yes, because he was a young father, his voice would be strong. So what Luz and Mark did was they decided to ask the neighbors that they had been, he said, living interdependently with. He had a Catholic worker house, and they were probably providing a lot of food, a lot of support, a lot of rides, a lot of the kind of help you give to distressed mothers, basically, single mothers. And they asked them to help Luz while he was away, and they did. The neighbors just cooperated beautifully, and it really, he said, it was just very good for us to be on the receiving end and to have the people that we had been serving us. So that was another example, I think, of what the kind of sharing and community building that resistance can do. The other interesting thing that happened with Mark and Luz in the in the New Haven Catholic Worker, they were receiving money from the Archdiocese of Hartford to run their House of Hospitality. All of a sudden, after he did this Plowshares action, the money dried up. It wasn't available. Well, the people in the parishes, the people that knew them, the people in the neighborhood made so much fuss that they gave the Archdiocese gave the money back. I said, not very often when the Archdiocese listens to the people, but they did. So that particular family and Catholic worker community ended up getting more support after he did this Plowshares action than they did before. Now, that doesn't always happen. People used to send Dorothy Day money and say, well, this is to thicken the soup, but don't be planning it on resistance. And Dorothy would say, well, it's all of a piece. It isn't some money for soup and some money to support prisoners. It's all of a piece. And that's, I think, maybe the thing that I want to leave people with, that working for peace is part of helping our schools, helping if we could get more money out of the Pentagon and into things that are life-giving instead of death-dealing. And that's why I think the people in doing time for peace keep doing it.
So that last clip was about a young man who was protesting against a nuclear weapons facility. This next clip is women talking about what it was like to live downwind of a nuclear weapons facility.
She speaks about her experiences that took place over a number of years throughout her life and has the scars to attest to it.
Right. This is a woman who grew up in Zigzag and was downwind of Hanford, and she talks about what it was like and the cancer and all the illness that her family experienced. So let's take a look.
Thank you.
So we were drinking water from a 8-foot deep well, and we didn't know that we were drinking something that was hurting us more. So my mother went into pernicious anemia, and we tried to save her life for years and years, and she went into more heart trouble. And my dad didn't feel good, so us two older girls had to do a lot of the work to keep the family going. There were 6 of us children by the time my baby brother was born, so they had a lot of responsibility. And so we carried water from the well and heated it on the stove, and we washed all the clothes on Saturdays and gave baths Saturday nights. But here we were in radioactive water. So we didn't know at that time either what was causing this. But we found out later that over 300,000 people in the Northwest had been affected by the radioactive fallout because Hanford was releasing radioactive iodine into the air and using us for guinea pigs because they wanted to see if radiation hurts people. Well, it hurt us very bad. One of my classmates came down with childhood diabetes. Later on, her father, they had 3 little girls, their father came down with cancer and he died before the children were through high school. We had a grade school teacher that had to quit teaching, and she had 2 little boys and she died of cancer while they were still in grade school. And there were numerous problems, and it's hard to remember all of them, but I want you to know that this hurt a lot of people. And so my older brother, because Zigzag River came from Mount Hood, the water came from Mount Hood, he'd play in the water and he'd swell up, and so he never got to learn to swim. And we couldn't figure out why he was swelling up. So as long as he stayed out of the water, he was okay.
Hi, I'm Dan Handelman, a producer with Flying Focus, to talk to you about the 3rd show I produced this past year. Like Barb's show, it focuses on Hanford and nuclear issues, but in the context of the annual Hiroshima Day commemoration organized by Oregon Physicians for Social Responsibility. The 2012 event had music, dance, information, and a call to action. The event here marked 67 years since the bomb dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now it's more than 68 years later, and radiation is leaking from the Fukushima power plant. In these clips, you'll see host Polo Catalani welcoming the crowd, Kathleen Finnegan, the poet laureate of Washington State, reading one of her many poems about the devastation caused by Hanford, drummers from the Grand Ronde tribe, Ailish Duff, the winner of PSR's Peace Essay Contest, PSR staff member Sean Tenney, and part of a performance by Chizao Hata. I had to show Chizao's clip to people a few times before they saw what I thought was an amazingly well-timed landing by a pigeon at the end of her piece. Take a look.
67 years ago, a city as vigorous as ours, a city full of children going to school and mothers going to work and fathers shopping and market, was incinerated in an instant.
We pulled up our covers while our overburdened fathers dragged home to fix a drink, and some of them grew sick. Carolyn, your father's marrow testified. Whistles from the train, the buses came, our fathers left. Oh, Carolyn, while the rest of us slept. They are here today, and while they cannot speak, they hear every rocket fired. They see every gun shoved in their face all too clearly. They know that they are someone's last priority, that you have no problem stealing from them in the name of God, of country and glory. They know, but they are still here.
We dare not hope that any mere political solution will solve the problem of nuclear weapons for us. Even with sustained, informed, and forceful public pressure at every level of government, it will still be necessary to transform our culture in whatever way that we can in each moment of our lives into a culture of compassion, cooperation, tolerance, understanding, and peace.
Remember my face. I am just like you. I am just like you. I am just like you. Remember. My face.
In another show that touches on issues of war and peace, I edited together a talk given by 4 Oregonians who traveled to Pakistan in 2012 to expose the harm being done by U.S. drone warfare. The first person you'll hear from is Trudy Cooper from Portland Code Pink, who's describing work being done by a Pakistani man trying to document the civilian casualties. The U.S. government refuses to admit those ever happen. Then Leah Bolger with Veterans for Peace in Corvallis talks a bit about the way drone strikes violate due process as one example of how they violate international law. The whole idea of using these remote-controlled aircraft operated from bases in the United States to drop bombs on people in other countries is horrifying enough, but hearing accounts of what the people on the other end of those bombs think is important too. In my opinion, war should never happen at all, but the idea that American lives are not put at risk because robots are flying into the airspace of a country which is ostensibly a U.S. ally to kill human beings is just appalling.
What he's doing is documenting the civilian deaths. He's not trying to document militant deaths. He's documenting because no one else will. All in all, he has gone to 60 sites. He, as well as the people's other survivors, are suffering from PTSD. I don't think that's surprising. He says that for every 10 or 15 people killed, maybe they get one militant. He puts himself at great risk because he goes in immediately, and everybody that is there would like to go in immediately, but they fear the double tap. And double tap, for those of you who haven't heard about what that is after the first strike, then rescuers go in to drag their family members and friends from the rubble, and they are hit again by another Hellfire missile. That is the policy. And that is a war crime. I mean, we all know that you don't, when what we in the U.S., in the West, consider terrorists hit a van with a red cross on it, that's considered a war crime, right? Doing it from 7,000 miles away at Creech Air Force Base is no less of a war crime.
Another way it violates international law is that it is, the bottom line is extrajudicial assassination. We are killing people without ever presenting any evidence that they have done anything wrong, without ever charging them with any crime, without ever having any proof. We have no way of having a positive identification that even if these people did do something wrong, that they are who we think they are. And many times, Kareem mentioned many times that, the United States, when we have a drone strike and they feel like they have to report that we got somebody high up, so it wasn't in vain, and they will say that, oh, we got this guy, and then 2 weeks later another drone strike, oh, we got that man again, and he said, how many lives does one man have? We wonder, how many times can one man be killed?
My last show, also on war and peace issues, features Cathy Breen, a member of Voices for Creative Nonviolence, who traveled to Iraq in October 2012, just before the 10-year anniversary of the invasion of that country. Cathy shared slides and stories of what life is like after 13 years of sanctions and war and 10 other years of war and occupation. Here with me is occasional Flying Focus contributor and video activist Joe Anybody, who you met before, who's videotaped Cathy's presentation on March 19 this year in Portland. So what do you remember about that?
Hi, Dan. It was a real educational report back from Cathy about how the effects of our occupation in Iraq was and how the people are living in despair over there.
Do you remember some of the slides that she showed? I remember they were a lot of them were really meaningful.
Yeah, they were, and there was also some concern too of us showing slides for the safety of the people over there that we had to edit and worry about. Yeah.
And I remember one slide was like this tangle of web of wires from the electricity over there. So in the clip you're about to see, Cathy starts by showing the concrete barricades that are up all over Baghdad, including around the heavily fortified Greene zone where the U.S. Embassy is located. Then she talks about some students who share their thoughts about what the lasting effects of U.S. policy are on Iraq. I think she paints a picture, including her emotional recounting of that discussion, that people need to see.
Yeah, it's real important for us to see and hear this report back. It was very enlightening.
Okay, let's take a look.
Everywhere you look, cement barricades. Al-Qarada. It's just hard to imagine. The Greene zone is behind this one. The U.S. Embassy, I had a tour of the Greene zone, and I had seen it, as I said, about 8 or 7 months into the occupation. I saw the U.S. Embassy, which was then in the palace, one of the palaces of Saddam Hussein. They've given that over now and built an embassy, which is It's obscene. It's just obscene. I have no other word for it. It's at least 2 New York City long avenue blocks in length, as far as the eye can see. And we employ 16,000 people in the embassy in Baghdad. And so Iraqis ask, what are they doing there? They haven't gone home. And then a young, impassioned woman from the middle of the lecture hall spoke up. It was obviously not easy for her. It is not about water and electricity, she said. You have destroyed everything. You have destroyed our country. You have destroyed our ancient civilization. You have destroyed what is inside us, she said like this. You have taken our smiles from us. You have taken our dreams. Someone else said, Iraqis cannot forget what Americans have done here. They destroyed the childhood. You don't destroy everything and then say we're sorry. You don't commit crimes and then say sorry. To bomb us and then send teams to do investigations on the effects of the bombs. No, it will not be forgotten. It is not written on our hearts. It is carved in our hearts. We are happy, said one, to make bridges between people, but we will not forget. What can you do? In Fallujah, 30% of the babies are born deformed. What can you do? This person spoke of meeting an American soldier in the airport. He was part of the special forces in Iraq. The soldier told him, the Bible tells us not to kill, but we were taught to kill for nothing. Just kill. I'm so sorry. Build bridges, apologize, and there was no rancor in his tone, just anger and deep pain.
That does it for the 22nd Busiversary. I'm Dan Handelman from Flying Focus Video saying thank you for joining us.
And I'm PC Peri. We hope you were able to get some new information that moved you to want to become involved and change the world. Knowledge is not power until you act on it.
If you want to volunteer with us or support us in any way, call 503-239-7456 or 503-321-5051 or write ffvc@flyingfocus.org. You've seen how many different kinds of issues we address on this show. Whatever interests you, help us make more.
Tune in or set your video recorder each week in the same time slot for the Flying Focus Video Bus. See you next time.